Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Feng Qinghe survived 9-leaf-old villain Ji's sweeping attack, and yet, he was outsmarted by a mere evil Sky Pavilion disciple. There was no way that he was willing to accept this. He tapped his dantian and pushed off from the ground before he charged toward Mingxirin. We'll die together then. Whiz. Mingxirin suddenly summoned his avatar. Feng Qinghe glanced at Mingxirin's avatar and said in a deep voice, 3-leaf? You overestimate your capabilities. Bam. 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 Feng Qinghe continuously launched hand seals from his palms. Mingxirin suddenly landed. His avatar rose half a meter before falling again. The separation hook in his hands collided with Feng Qinghe. Boom. Mingxirin felt his arms go numb. However, he was not pushed back. Instead, Feng Qinghe was the one who reeled back. Feng Qinghe had been leaning forward as he charged, so he reeled from the impact at once. His eyes widened as he stared incredulously at Mingxirin, who was coming at him through the air. 4-leaf? A smile spread across Mingxirin's face. The heaven-grade weapon in his hand gleamed coldly as he said, You're not bad. You managed to force me to use 2/3 of my strength. Feng Qinghe felt his scalp prickle. He had underestimated his opponent. He did not let his power erupt since he wanted to keep the burning of his sea of qi to a minimum. He continued to struggle. You can't kill me. Mingxirin faded out of focus and vanished. Feng Qinghe's chest tightened. In this brief moment where he was reeling back, he was frightened. Was this truly the strength of a 4-leaf cultivator? Whoosh. A light flashed for a moment. Feng Qinghe landed on the ground and saw the cold light. Mingxirin's afterimage appeared in his wake, and just like that, the battle was over. With a faint smile, Mingxirin raised his separation hook and studied it. He shook his head, picked up a leaf, and wiped the blade of the separation hook. Feng Qinghe chuckled and said, I told you. You can't kill me. Mingxirin ignored him. He walked toward the valley. He wanted to see what the trump card Feng Qinghe had prepared in the valley. Feng Qinghe frowned. He was about to turn around when he felt a cold sensation on his neck. A breeze brushed against his nape. He seemed to feel some liquid flowing down his neck, and he instinctively reached out to touch it. His fingers were stained with blood. At this moment, a searing pain spread from his neck throughout his body. He wanted to howl in pain, but he could only choke. He felt his life slipping away as he lay on the ground. Although Mingxirin knew that there was some treasure preserving Feng Qinghe's life on Feng Qinghe's body, he did not rush to remove it. He was being cautious. For a cultivator like Feng Qinghe, it was likely that he would launch a final attack with his dying breath. Since Feng Qinghe managed to escape from his master's attacks, it meant that Feng Qinghe was not simple. He might look casual, but he had put a lot of thought and effort into his actions. Indeed, Feng Qinghe wore some kind of protective suit, but his neck was exposed. A moment later, Mingxirin was inside the valley. The floor of the valley was scattered with densely packed tree stumps that resembled a plum blossom formation. Various veins were carved onto the tree stumps. With the night sky as a contrast, the veins glowed strangely. Beyond the tree stumps, there was a simple and lone wooden hut. If Mingxirin did not search for it, or if he did not have a guide, he would not think there was a place like this here. He did not rush forward to inspect it. After all, Feng Qinghe had said he had a hidden trump card here. It was likely a trap. Creak. The door of the wooden hut swung open. An ancient and deep voice rang in the air. Pardon my lack of hospitality, though you've traveled far. Mingxirin could sense the power behind the voice. He took 2 steps backward and said, I didn't mean to intrude, senior. Eh? Thud. 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 An old woman with a stooped back emerged from the wooden hut. She leaned on a walking stick and was walking slowly. When she finally stepped out of the hut, she looked at Ming-Sher-in. The moonlight was dim, but her vision did not seem to be affected. After taking a long look at him, she shook her head and said, "Young man, did you kill Feng Qinghe?" Ming-Sher-in's heart sank. To think that she was capable of making that judgment from such a distance. The old woman seemed to have seen through Ming-Sher-in's apprehension and confusion. She laughed in her deep voice before she said, "I've lived in this valley for many years now. Nobody has ever stumbled upon this place. Feng Qinghe was the only one." "You're from the Zhensong branch?" Ming-Sher-in was prepared to flee at a moment's notice. However, since he did not seem to sense any killing intent from this old woman, he tried to talk to her. "Well, you can say that," the old woman replied. "In that case, I'll be taking my leave." "Hold up," the old woman said, "I promised Feng Qinghe one thing." "And what is it?" "I'll do everything within my power to kill those who venture into this valley," the old woman replied. Ming-Sher-in was speechless. Curiosity really killed the cat. If he had known about this, he would not have ventured in here at all. Wait, old senior. Feng Qinghe was trying to kill me. I was forced to defend myself." The old woman looked up at the moon at the entrance to the valley. "If you can kill Feng Qinghe, you must have a profound cultivation base. I won't bully you just because you're young. Let's have a fair fight." No. "You think too highly of me, senior." Ming-Sher-in did not hesitate to humble himself as he said, "It was just a fluke. I had gotten lucky." After he finished speaking, he clamped a hand over his mouth. Did he not just admit that he had killed Feng Qinghe? The old woman nodded slowly. She walked from the wooden hut to the plum blossom stumps and said, "You're brave." "I'm not." Ming-Sher-in retreated. "I hope you won't hold this against me in your death. I must do what I have promised." The old woman sighed softly. "It's fine if you're slightly weaker. Things will proceed much more smoothly." She continued forward, aided by her walking stick. The moment she stepped among the plum blossom stumps, the two stumps before her shone. Talisman seals hovered above the plum blossom stumps. Feng Qinghe challenged my master without knowing his own strength. He has only himself to blame for his death. Ming-Sher-in said, "My master isn't a pushover." That sounded awkward, but now that he was cornered, he blurted out whatever came to his mind. "Your master?" "My master is the evil Sky Pavilion's master, Ji Tiandao." Creak. The old woman stopped in her tracks. She seemed distracted. Ming-Sher-in relaxed. As expected, master's name is truly powerful. She must be shaking in fear now. "How's your master doing recently?" the old woman asked. Ming-Sher-in gave it some thought before he said smugly, "My master is already at the 9-leaf stage. He's the first 9-leaf elite under the heavens." Swoosh. A wooden stump shot out from the ground. With a ring of expansive heavenly energy around it, it flew toward Ming-Sher-in. Boom. 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 Ming-Sher-in raised his hands and struck with his palms. Boom. Boom. Boom, bam bam bam. Every time they clashed, a burst of expansive heavenly energy would ripple out. At the same time, Ming-Sher-in kept retreating as he parried the wooden stump. He was alarmed. The old woman was much more powerful than he had imagined. The old woman said, "Little brat who's still wet behind the ears, do you think I'm gullible?" A wooden stump was all it took for the old woman to render Ming-Sher-in helpless to fight back. He was suitably shocked. Since when did Zhensong branch have such a grand elite? Based on Feng Qinghe's words, this old woman was his hidden trump card. This place was at least 100 miles from Golden Court Mountain. It was considered extremely remote. The trees grew wildly around here, and the valley hid it from view. Being this removed from human settlements and without protection from formations, the wild beasts in the wilderness would be enough of a headache. The wooden hut and plum blossom stumps seemed old. The weed was taller than most men. Clearly, this old woman had been living here for a long time now. This was not a hidden trump card. Zhenghai was merely grasping at straws. Old senior. I would never dare to lie to you. My master is truly at the 9-leaf stage. Mingxian said. You're still lying? The wooden stump before the old woman rose into the air again, releasing a ring of script seals before it flew toward Mingxian again. Mingxian leaped away. He summoned his heaven-grade weapon, the separation hook. Bam. 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 Mingxian swung the weapon twice and cleaved the wooden stump in half. After the veins on the wooden stump were damaged by the weapon, they lost their effects. The old woman seemed puzzled when she saw the weapon in his hands. She said, heaven-grade weapon, the separation hook? Mingxian landed and looked at the old woman as he asked, you recognize this, old senior? You're his disciple. As it turned out, the old woman did not believe Mingxian at all from the very beginning despite his efforts to convince her of the veracity of his words. As expected of an experienced and old cultivator. She would not be easily fooled. It was practically useless to try and play tricks against someone of this caliber. If he was honest enough, perhaps, she would consider sparing him out of consideration for his master. Old senior, how should I address you? I have left the cultivation world and do not trouble myself with the affairs of the world. After this is settled, I'll seal the valley off and won't have any more interactions with the outside world, the old woman replied. Mingxian knew the old woman's strength was profound. With his limited knowledge, it was only natural he did not recognize her. Old senior, since I can't run anyway, you can take a look for yourself if you don't believe me. Zhenghai's corpse is there, Mingxian said as he pointed outside. Zhenghai attacked the evil sky pavilion by working with the 6 great sections. My master attacked them out of anger. The old woman glanced at him. He hasn't reached his great limit? He's alive and kicking. Lead the way. The two of them went to where Mingxian had been fighting moments ago. The 1-mile path seemed to stretch on forever. Mingxian dared not tell the old woman to walk faster. He merely followed her obediently from behind. After a while, they finally reached the location of the battle. When the old woman saw Zhenghai's corpse, she paused and sighed. She studied the corpse for a moment before she straightened her back and said, come here. Are you talking to me, old senior? Do you think I can talk to ghosts? Oh. Mingxian obediently walked over. Well, you can't blame me for mistaking you talking to Zhenghai's soul. The old woman grabbed his wrist. A faint pulse of primal chi swirled in the air and instantly faded. 4-leaf? I know, right? I was wrongly accused. With my cultivation base, how could I have possibly killed the 7-leaf Zhenghai? Mingxian said. The old woman fell deep into thought. The 4-leaf Mingxian could never bridge a 3-leaf gap and defeat Zhenghai. Besides, Zhenghai had also burned his own sea of qi. Mingxian was not even a 5-leaf cultivator. He was not considered a grand cultivator as well. Even a 7-leaf peer would not be so bold to underestimate Zhenghai. Old senior, I have something to say, but I'm not sure if it's appropriate for me to say it. Mingxian could tell that she was wavering and decided to strike while the iron was hot. What is it? With regard to the information about Zhenghai colluding with the 6 great sects to attack the evil sky pavilion, you may verify it later. Zhenghai had fled all the way here with the intention of leading my master here. He harbors ill intentions, and yet, you're still helping him? The old woman frowned. This brat has a point. I'll take your word for it, for now, but if you mention the 9-leaf stage again, I'll kill you, the old woman said. Mingxian's heart skipped a beat. What a vicious old lady. However, even he would not have believed someone had attained the 9-leaf stage if he did not witness it with his own eyes. It was natural the old woman did not believe him. Thank you, old senior. May I go now? Mingxian asked, preparing to leave. He knew the more he spoke, the more mistakes he was going to make. It was not wise for him to stay here any longer than necessary. He decided to leave as soon as the opportunity presented itself. He prioritized his life above all else. Wait. Mingxian turned around. The old woman said, I've promised Feng Qinghe, after all. Regardless of the sins he had committed, it'd be wrong for me to go back on my words. A few days from now, I'll visit the Evil Sky Pavilion and have a chat with your master. Come to think of it, it's been a long time since I've met him. I'd like to resolve my regrets before either of us gets buried 6 feet underground. Regrets? What regrets? Mingxian was curious. He flashed a smile and said, I'll surely convey your message to my master. After saying this, he took one final and fond look at Feng Qinghe's corpse. He initially wanted to strip Feng Qinghe of the treasured vest. However, it seemed best to leave it for now. It was stained with blood and reeked of sweat. Mingxian could never bring himself to wear something like that. Then, he quickly vanished from among the trees. The old woman looked in the direction of the forest. She shook her head lightly and muttered, what a waste of your cultivation base to have recruited such a cowardly disciple. Golden Court Mountain's barrier lit up. It shone so brightly that the civilians in Tongxi town looked toward Golden Court Mountain. After a short spell, the radiance of the barrier dimmed. Lu Zhou stopped channeling his primal chi into it, and it returned to normal. The barrier that seemed like a screen in the sky became transparent. It glittered with faint blue light every once in a while. The notification about the peak trial card's time limit reached Lu Zhou's ears. He felt the surging power in his body quickly receding before it completely vanished. His cultivation base returned to the divine court realm. It had been a wonderful feeling, he was sorry to see it end. With movements as light as a feather, Lu Zhou slowly descended from the top of the Evil Sky Pavilion to the ground. Greetings, Master. Wuya ran up to Lu Zhou. He fell to his knees at once and kowtowed. He was trembling slightly and was drenched in cold sweat. He seemed frightened. His forehead remained on the ground, he was too afraid to meet his master's eyes. Lu Zhou asked in a deep voice, who gave you the permission to leave the Cave of Reflection? I know I'm wrong. The barrier of the Cave of Reflection disappeared. I was only thinking of helping the Evil Sky Pavilion. I wasn't thinking straight back then, and I have no intention of escaping. Please believe me, Master. Wuya said, still lying prostrate on the ground. Help the Evil Sky Pavilion? Lu Zhou said with a slight hint of derision. With your cultivation base? Do you think the 7 great sects would be threatened by you? Lu Zhou asked. Wuya was rendered speechless. At the end of the day, check and balance were built on the basis of brute force. The 7 great sects had been prepared to die. Even if he had a silver tongue, could he really persuade them to call off the attack? After witnessing the battlefield, Wuya was greatly shaken. The 7 great sects were even bold enough to take on a 9-leaf cultivator. Would someone like him be able to bring them under control? At this moment, Lang Luo, Hua Wado, Duanmu Sheng, and the other disciples returned to the Evil Sky Pavilion. They landed before the Great Hall. When they saw Lu Zhou standing there, everyone bowed in unison. Greetings, Pavilion Master. Greetings, Master. Master. Before Zhu Honggong could begin to flatter Lu Zhou, Duanmu Sheng placed a firm hand on his shoulder. The others immediately felt relieved, inwardly thanking Duanmu Sheng. Someone should have put a stop to old Eighth a long time ago. Lu Zhou stroked his beard with a nod and said, lock him up. Understood. Wuya behaved respectfully. He returned to the Cave of Reflection with Zhou Jifeng. Lu Zhou looked at the moon. He initially had many things he wanted to delegate to them, but it was getting late. Hence, he said, let's call it a day. Rest well, Pavilion Master. Rest well, Master. Lu Zhou waved his sleeve and returned to the Eastern Pavilion. Nobody would dare move before the 9-leaf cultivator excused himself. Everyone held their breaths and maintained their bowing postures. Even Lang Luo and Hua Wudao were no exception.